You guys ever realize that in most situations it's better to just really not say much and kind of let the other person talk for most of the time? Whenever you start talking too much, it kind of turns people off, especially if you don't let them get a word in. I've learned that, I guess, throughout the years. You can see it in their face, especially if it's just kind of more of a random person. As soon as you start like dominating the conversation and you start talking about whatever you're interested in, a lot of times the other person will they'll kind of look to vacate. They want to leave the situation because they're not, they don't really want to be involved in a conversation that's dominated by you. I've kind of taken that skill though, and I genuinely am pretty interested in a lot of different things, or am open to just hearing other people talk about themselves and what they're interested in. And really all you have to do is listen. You don't really even have to show like a ton of amount of interest in it. Although if you just ask basic questions, then they'll think a lot higher of you if you show some amount of interest. For me, it's actually pretty easy because a lot of it's genuine. I don't have a problem talking to people. And I found that if you let them kind of dominate the conversation a little bit, or if they start talking about a topic that they're interested in, not only does it become a much easier conversation, but I think they remember that, and so they think more highly of you, or they generally have a positive outlook when it comes to you, even if you've only had a few interactions. So that's what I've noticed. And you can't really fake it. I mean, people will see through that and they'll just stop talking. They'll stop opening themselves up to you because they can sense that you're not really interested in what they're talking about. But you also have to know kind of how to balance that out and when to stop, because you get into some conversations with people and hey, they will literally keep talking about themselves if you're there. Like, they will talk for 3 hours, because they just love talking about themselves. And that was something I learned from my dad. Was that people really love talking about themselves. And it's not necessarily that, you don't even have to really do much. It's just that they remember that they got to talk about their experience in life or the things they liked when you were there and you were listening and you showed some amount of interest. Like I said, for me, it's just kind of genuine. Like, I get engaged when I can sense that someone's really talking about the things they want to talk about, whether that's like their hobbies or, the trips they want to go on, or like a certain topic that they have a lot of interest in. I get genuinely like engaged in that. Most of life, you're not really, if you're working or you're talking about stuff that's not that interesting, it's hard to really get engaged. But it's pretty cool when someone's, starts opening up about topics they're interested in. And again, if you're taking the time to listen and ask just some open-ended questions about it, it's just a good way to have to have people have genuinely a positive perception of you. And you want to be, in those situations, you're just kind of agreeable. You just kind of let them say whatever they want. But yeah, people really like talking about themselves, and I've even found myself doing it too. But like deep down, I'm able to see through it and say, well, I know other people don't really care, so I kind of don't go into like full detail mode, because they don't care, right? They have their own life, and I'd say the difference is with me, I don't get to that point of like cutting someone off or like acting like I don't want to be there, unless it becomes so ridiculously long, where they're just going on and on and on and on and on about themselves, and it's like to the point where it's hysterical. But I'll talk with someone for 15 minutes and pretty much let them talk most of the time if I got nothing else going on. So that's a skill that it's probably through experience that you learn to just kind of let people talk, and they will talk to you, especially if they sense that you're a good listener and will let them say what they want to say. And then you need to make comments at appropriate times, but it's pretty easy to do. It's not easy to do, actually. It's easy to understand, but oftentimes when people get into a conversation with someone, they want to interrupt them, or they want to give their opinion before the other person finishes, or they just completely want to change the subject and start talking about themselves. That's something I noticed with a lot of younger people, is that I think when they get a little nervous, they just keep talking. And a lot of times it's like they start sharing stuff about themselves or their personal life or situation, and it's like, did anyone ask you about where did that come from? Did anyone ask you about that? And I think it's just because they're they don't really have it's mostly women, I would say. Men for the most part don't start talking about nothing unless there's like absolutely nothing going on. But I think it's just kind of funny to watch, because sometimes people start talking about stuff. It's like, wow, you went into such a deep level of detail about stuff that like no one asked you about, and I don't think anyone really cares about what you had for breakfast and how long it took you to get here and how your life's so difficult, when that wasn't even like the topic, right? It just kind of came out of thin air. So I don't know. I think it's just the thing about maturing. It is pretty funny though, because in like public situations or among other people, I've always been one to just kind of I don't really say too much. Like, I don't want to over comment or speak too much, because I understand that certainly in a group you're just one person, and if you start talking too much, the other people will kind of not be very interested, or they'll feel like you're kind of domineering the conversation, and they can't get a word in, and they just don't feel comfortable maybe contributing or saying how they feel. And the reason I know that is because that's exactly how I feel when I'm in a group, or someone starts talking and they just don't stop talking. And so you don't really feel like it's a good place to comment or say too much, because it's not really the right environment. You feel like you're just going to be flushed out by someone that's dominating the meeting or the conversation. And if it doesn't really impact you, especially like in a work setting, if it's just a kind of a pointless meeting that doesn't really have any sort of action items that are going to impact you in any way, most people's tendency is to just show up and not really contribute and not really do much, because they don't, at the end of the day, they don't want a bunch of more work, and they don't want to say anything that could be viewed as controversial. Again, especially like in a corporate setting, you just never know how other people think or how other people feel, and so the best defense is just to not do anything. Because as soon as you say something like, oh, I like that plan, or I didn't like that initiative, or I thought you said, I think we need to do this, or celebrate this, or talk about that, you start kind of putting yourself into a corner. And some people might be offended by it or whatever. You just never know. Like, to me, I don't think I'd really let anything really ever offend me too much, or I wouldn't really get too upset about anything, because I understand human nature, and people are just doing whatever they want to do, whatever's in their best interest. And so if they want to try to say something bad about you or put you down or try to make you do more, it's just because they, maybe they want to do less, or they want to have you be responsible for more so that they can do less or whatever. But, and so oftentimes that'll lead towards like violence. If you allow yourself to get really ticked off by what other people do, or you feel like people are talking about you or whatever, a lot of times that can lead towards violence, or just getting kind of more physical with people, because you're like, hey, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Why are you saying these things? Why are you treating me this way? Why do you keep saying these things in these meetings? So I think most of the time people are just totally neutral, like, because they don't really care. It's like, this doesn't impact my life. Now, when you're part of stuff that does impact your life, and it really makes a difference on either, how you get paid, or what your day-to-day function is, if you find yourself having to do like twice the amount of work, or be in twice the amount of meetings, or have to do a bunch of more presentations or whatever, then you might say something, because they're actually asking you to do stuff and provide deliverables. But I would say the overwhelming majority of the time, a lot of like corporate meetings or just meetings in general are really kind of a waste of time. There is some value from interacting with other people, and getting to kind of talk about things in a more of a open forum setting. But a lot of times it's just like, is it really the best use of time to have 5 people, 10 people, 25 people, sometimes even like 300 people, sitting on this phone call when we're talking about something? For some people, the answer is yes, but I think most of the time it's no. It's another thing too, is all the corporations, they don't really care about all these initiatives. There's more geese over there. This track, there's always geese. I ran at this track for years, and there's never anyone there, because you have to jump the fence to get over. But anyways, like Women's History Month, or Black History Month, or Asian Pacific Islander Month, or Hispanic Culture Month, Gay Pride Month, all these different months, the company doesn't care. They're just pandering towards the widest audience. Not whitest, widest. WIDEST, right? Of course, there's not a White History Month, right? That's every month. So you don't get to have a White History Month. Not that I or anyone would want one, but it's just kind of funny to me that they have all these different history months or months where they celebrate certain people, and they don't. They don't care. It's just pandering towards the widest possible audience, so that they can say that they're not offending anyone and that they're an inclusive organization. If anyone else works in like a company, a big company, they certainly would be exposed to that. It's just a ridiculous amount of pointless meetings and pointless emails about stuff that it doesn't have anything to do with the day-to-day responsibilities of what they actually measure. I'm gonna back up here, dude. This is getting ridiculous, this line. I guess not anymore. There's a guy behind me. I mean, I can't even see what's going on here. That's been my experience. There's just a lot of waste and a lot of, I think, unnecessary functions within a big company. But they've, for whatever reason, they want to have emails go out about what you're doing in the community and how great we are as a company. When really, I think the average employee that works there, they don't feel that way at all. I mean, they're kind of in a struggle just to get paid, right? They don't necessarily they don't care about all that other stuff. It's like, hey man, I got responsibilities. I got people that want money from me. I got to do certain things. And is any of this going to impact how I get paid? Because I can't tell the bank, hey, can you give me an extension on this? Because it's Pacific Islander Identification Month and I did 2 hours extra of community service in the Asian community this month. Can you give me a better interest rate on my loan? That's just not how it works, right? How is this? I think the best run companies or organizations are ran where it's like, hey, I don't care who you are. I don't care what gender you are. I don't care what you do on the weekend or what you do in the evenings or how you spend your money. Can you show up and do the functions of the job? And hey, if you want to work more and you have the flexibility to go work more, we're not telling you have to, but we're going to put in place a system that rewards you for working harder. I mean, what rational person is going to want to work, more than the minimum if there's no incentive to do so? The answer is no one. No rational person would do that. Now, someone that really likes their job, wow, this guy's coming in hot. Someone that really likes their job, or really likes the people they work with, or really likes their manager and wants to go above and beyond consistently for no real discernible pay increase or anything, more power to them. But I was listening to a video just kind of around this topic, and the guy was talking about younger people, how when they get out of college, you're 23, 24, or 22 to 25 maybe. You have all this energy, you just came out of a system where you're used to putting in 8 hours, 9 hours a day of studying or whatever, taking tests, you're ready, and you've been in school, so you're ready to go out and earn money and start your career, and then they just put you into a corporate system where you might work really, really hard for a few months or even a few years until you realize, wow, they don't care how hard I work. They pay the guy that's doing next to nothing the same as me, who's working consistently 50 hours or 55 hours a week or whatever. Maybe you're just a lot better at your job, but because it's corporate America, they don't care. And the answer to that is, people do realize that. You get two different types of people: the people that just accept it and they're like, well, I'm just not going to work that hard, I'm just going to coast and accept it. And then the other type of person is the person that realizes they're working way harder, and instead of complaining, they just change where they're working. Right? You can't change the corporate culture. You're going to have to change where you are. You're going to have to change that. You're going to have to leave that company, because ultimately the company is not going to reward you for the amount of work that you're doing. They're always going to be paying you less and taking advantage of the time that you're contributing towards helping the company. And it may take you several years to identify that, right? Because you think, oh man, if I just do a good job, I'll get recognized, my bosses will like me, I'll get that big raise, and it'll all work out. In reality, there are huge corporate guardrails, and I think pretty much regardless of what you do, unless it's just something so spectacular, the company is going to take 95% of your efforts, and they'll give you maybe 5%, right? They're gonna be the winner of all of your efforts, and you're probably just going to be paid more of like a pittance towards what you actually produced or the amount of value you provided. Because that's the way it's set up. The whole system around the salary is, we're going to pay you a below market rate, and we're going to try to get you to work more than the minimum. So each person has to figure that out and fight that battle on their own. It can be a frustrating game to play, because if you spend 10 plus years of your life in that system, you can become, and then you finally wake up one day, it's like, whoa, I just spent 10 years of my life in this system, and I'm really no better off than I was than when I started. I'm getting the same amount of money on an inflation adjusted basis, and I'm, as soon as I leave, I'm so easily replaced, right? That was another comment from people, was you can be, you're just a small cog in the machine. You can be so easily replaced by the next person, because you're just serving a function, right? You're not really doing anything overly important. And even if you are, like, the people you work with, the customers you have, they might say, oh man, that guy was great, or that gal was great, they did such a good job, and I wish they were still around. But the company still goes on. The new person comes in, and maybe they don't do as good of a job, but they still have, you're just a representative of the company, and whatever sort of extra value you added, the customer might like it, but the company's not really going to pay you more for it. And that's, the employee has to understand that. It's like, hey, if I feel like I'm doing a good job, and my customers really like me, and I'm doing, and I feel like I'm doing better than most people at the company, and there's no incentive structure in place where I can get rewarded, you can make that decision. Hey, okay, I really like the company, I'm just going to stay here and continue to work here. It's easy. I'm comfortable here. I know what I'm doing. I'm efficient at it. That's certainly a route you could go. But it's the individual has to, understand I got to change where I'm at, right? I'm never going to make a lot of money just getting 3% increases. I have to change my position to get a big salary increase, or change my position to where there's an incentive structure where maybe I can earn a lot more income because of my productivity. So that's really the biggest tragedy, I think, is that you get put in a position where you work really hard and you're working hard for the company, and they don't appreciate it at all. They'd rather, hire and fire and hire and fire and have people quit and go through all the training just to pay you, the bare minimum, right? Rather than, accurately identify 10% of the workforce that they have that is really doing a good job, should be responsible for more things, and then understand, what can we do to get these people, A, to want to stay here, B, to maybe train some of the other people and just pick their brain on some of the best policies or what they do to be successful in that position. And then as the company, you got to understand, all we can offer people is money. We can't really offer them anything else, right? Everyone works because they need to have money. So, we need to offer these people more. And if we don't, then we really open ourselves up to losing a lot of people. And they could be important people, especially in bigger companies with a lot of tribal knowledge. You think about someone that's been there for 10 years, they probably know a lot, right? They know a lot about how the system works, about how the different technologies talk to each other. They have a lot of human connections there. Someone that's new and just is off the street or starts, they're not going to know anything. It's going to take them 6 months, a year, 2 years, maybe even longer to get ramped up and to feel comfortable just in their position. That other person that's been there for 10 years, think about all the contacts and all the extra knowledge they have because of the time that they have invested at that company. And I just think at a lot of big corporations, that goes totally unrewarded. That's just not how they're set up. So as the employee, you can accept it and say, yeah, I've become so efficient at my job, I don't really want to leave, it's comfortable, I get paid okay, and it is what it is. I think a lot of other people, they realize it's kind of a dead end, I can't really make much more each year, and if I want to progress, I have to look elsewhere and kind of expand my horizons into a position that rewards you for how productive you are. The tough thing about those positions is that a lot of times when there is a lot of money to be made, they're very competitive positions, right? Because it's not just a normal corporate job, it's a job where a lot of people want to do it, and if you do a good job, you make money, but if you don't do a good job, or if you're not doing whatever it is you're supposed to do, they will fire you, or they will move on towards someone that can, because they know it's a high paying position. So those are kind of the pluses and minuses of it. Most of the corporate jobs are going to be, they just don't fire people that much, right? And because they have all these initiatives about being diverse and inclusive and, being involved in your community. When I worked at a couple other companies, I mean, there wasn't one piece of communication about any of that. It was go sell this, whatever we're selling, and that's it. We're not going to do anything. Go make phone calls and go sell this, and we don't care about all that other stuff at all. Diversity, not once was it mentioned. It was, you're here to make money, go out and make money, right? I prefer that, I think, a lot more than the other one, but it all just depends. So let me know what you guys think about that. If you've worked in a big company or like a more of a startup or smaller company, those are kind of the two different the two different mentalities there. So you guys have a good day. Like the video if you want. You can put a comment in there. I'll probably respond to you. And be safe and have a great rest of the day.